First narrowboat video for a long time. Yeah, because Vincent Joseph has had a problem with his heat exchanger, which has meant that, if you don't understand what a heat exchanger is, then basically the thing on the diesel engine that circulates both the liquid and allows the exhaust gases to go through, so it cools the exhaust gases, and it's not supposed to leak water into the exhaust gases. But if you've got a very, very old boat, and if perhaps people haven't kept the coolant level up properly over time, then what happens is that it rusts, and then water goes through from one side to the other and ends up going out the exhaust. And also there was a secondary problem with the core plug, but it took 3 months, because, well, 3.5 months, because the guys at Wootton Warren Welsh, Anglo-Welsh Hire Base very kindly agreed to fix the boat, but Vinnie has an old Ford XLD 1.8 engine, which probably originally used the kind of thing used for a tractor, something like that, and there were no heat exchangers available for any Marinized versions of that engine, so one had to be fabricated at some expense, and it took, instead of 2 to 3 weeks, 3.5 months for it to turn up. But the Anglo-Welsh people have been absolutely wonderful. John, the workshop manager, Colin, and all the other guys, they've been absolutely lovely. We've been moored on their wharf, on their side, so Jason, the local licensed support officer, was very good to start with, but then the boat got moved over to the Anglo-Welsh side of the canal anyway, and that's where he's been for the last 3.5 months. Finally got it fitted last week, back end of last week. Very tight, these bridges, and there's probably some leaves in the water as well, we'll find out in a moment. And yeah, and then discovered that there was a core plug issue, so had to solve that as well. Bit of revs come into neutral, float through this, so split bridge so that the rope could go through when horses were drawing the boats. So you'd have to disconnect. Obviously they're in a bit of a, they've not been used for horses for some time, so yeah, anyway, should be away from the leaf balls now. In autumn, all of the bridge holes get absolutely full of leaves, and if you come through with excessive amount of revs on, which is just about any at some points, then what happens is you just pick up loads of leaves around the prop, and what you need to do then is actually put the boat into reverse for a little bit in order to get them off. Obviously it's better not to pick them up in the first place. As you can see though, this canal, the Stratford, is very shallow, and therefore we're on a slight tilt there, just because of the silt under there. As you can see, the angle of that bridge that we went through, you don't have much choice. Anyway, so this is first trip with Vincent Joseph, back underway. Temperature gauge says somewhere between 80 and 90, which is what I'd expect. I think it'd been an issue for a long time, and essentially when it was hot it started causing a proper problem, because the engine water obviously has coolant in, circulates, but it gets mainly cooled by going through, or someone spilled diesel on the canal here. It gets mainly cooled by that's a lot of diesel in the canal. It gets mainly cooled by the skin tank, which is basically full of water inside the outer skin of the boat, and then the water goes through there, so that's cooled itself by the canal water. When the temperatures rose during the summer, the canal water was sufficiently warm, even though it's a heat sink, that it wasn't really doing any cooling for the engine, which meant that within the space of an hour max, the engine was overheating because it couldn't retain all of its own water, and it was gradually recycling, kind of dumping about 3 litres at a time into the bilge. Then you'd fill it up again, and then it would be gone again because it would leak out either through the heat exchanger or through the broken core plug. So we've had all 4 of those put back in, and the heat exchanger changed, and this is first proper tryout. So probably just go up to Preston Bagot. We've come up from Warren, as it's normally called, and yeah, South Stratford. Never got to Stratford. Would kind of like to be back up on the Birmingham level for proper winter. So idea is basically to gradually move back up the South Stratford. At some point, go back up the locks at Lapworth. It's roughly 20 of them, and then you can see I normally know these things. I just know it's roughly 20 now because it's 4 months. No, it's longer than that. 5 months since we came down them. Back up there, and then we're back on the Birmingham level, on the North Stratford and on the Worcester and Birmingham. We can tootle around for the winter, much as I did last year, and be in touch with all the places that I need to go to from the boat. So there we go. Yeah, first boat video for a long time. I should have done one leaving Wootton Warn and the hire base, because that's been home for over 3 months. Yeah, busy actually doing getting the boat running stuff, and we shall see how we go. Fingers crossed.